Hello and welcome to this week's episodes of The Calling. Follow your spirit all the way in. I'm your host, Homaya. Join me in this journey of self-awareness, soul frequencies, and spiritual revelations. Let's fly.
Hello, my beauties. Wow, it's been a month and it's been an intense month. And during the entire month, I knew that eventually I will find myself sitting and recording this episode, this transmission. Maybe it will be one episode, maybe more than one. The last month was intense, transformative. It was a master month, a month where you can really learn about, I could really learn about myself and about life. A month ago, exactly a month ago, my mother passed away. And as much as I wanted to believe, which is so beautiful, that I know and I've invested to educate myself around death and the connection between death and life and living, how important they are for each other, for the depth of understanding of what life is. As you are in the room with death, you know that you can never be prepared. And I feel that this is why spirit insisted, and the thoughts and the feeling and the sensation that this must be recorded and shared. Because I know, because it feels like we need to get more education, more awareness for the sacredness of life, for our mental health, emotional health, for our sovereignty, for our mastery. And although I was going around in circles and pushing the moment of recording, I had to surrender. So I'm sitting in my living room after a day of so many tears, and I'm just going to share with you as we're sitting here together. There could be moments of silence, there could be moments of tears if those will come, but I trust that you would listen to it, knowing that there are codes here for you, both about death and about grief. I also want to share that I was avoiding for so long also to record about giving birth to my child, because I do believe that the codes that I can share there are exceptional because of who I am, because my sensitivity to energy, because of the way that I read and experience energy in my body. And I might do that. I might record about the birth of my child, but I mention it from two reasons. One is listen and get the codes that are relevant for you, and practically, because there is so much connection between birth and death. So my mother was very dominant energetically, yet she was a very reserved person. Something in between fearful to very low self-esteem. And because of that, she was very controlling, which next to her beautiful and unique gifts influenced my life. She was very artistic in her nature, very creative in her own style. I feel that she gradually passed away, not in one day. And although 30 days passed since she passed away, I feel she's still gradually passing. Her physical condition was of a long process of decaying with another challenge and another challenge. And it was so interesting because every time there was a feeling that because of that physical condition, she would pass. Her heart will break, one of her systems will break. But none of that happened. And as long as she was decaying, during all the time that she was decaying, what I felt is that she's gradually transforming, transmuting into a thin air. Yet her character was very clear. So much of her was already not here when she passed. But the strong part of her character, of her personality, was there until the last breath. She couldn't speak at that time. She was in suffering. She couldn't move, and she was still there. I came to be by her side, and it was clear that we're speaking about days or maybe hours. I felt I must be there with her. I must sit by her side. I couldn't imagine this sacred moment doing it next to machines, noises. The day was full of pre-planned activities, and I gradually clear them. The day before, she was still struggling, and I was sitting by her side, and I was quite amazed on seeing how life is continuing. People were working. The street was full of cars. Everything continued as it is, while she was there, struggling for her life. Now that I'm recording this and I'm living my life and everything seems okay, and you're now driving your car or sitting in the bath and listening to it, and there's someone who's completing their lives. And this is so precious and so meaningful. Yet it is unperceivable. And we're somehow created a culture to ourselves in which we're not present to death. It is happening out of our sight, and it doesn't allow us to be more human. On the contrary, it pushes us to be more machines, because it is so easy, much more easier to just operate and not to feel what death invites you to feel, what death confronts you with, and what will happen to you if you really acknowledge it, if you be in the room with it, if you look to it in the eyes. The day before she passed away, so many people came to say goodbye without them knowing that they're coming to say goodbye, but they just came to be with her. And it was unperceivable how hard it is to acknowledge that it might be the last time. And even for me, it was hard to perceive. At the end of the day, I was driving back to my parents' house, and I had a conversation with God. And I said to God, like, I cannot understand. I just cannot understand the frequency. I cannot understand what's going on. How come I don't feel you so present? How could it be we're speaking about a monumental moment in life? How come I don't feel you, God, as I would say, as I expect to? Where are you? Few minutes afterwards, I saw the car in front of me, huge letters written something around the words were, God loves you and God is with you and everything's going to be okay and it's just going to get better and better and it's going to be amazing. And I remember looking at this sentence with huge letters on the car in front of me, saying to God, really? This, like, this is what you're bringing? At the day of her death, I went to be with her. I don't know if she could see me or feel me. Maybe for a glimpse of a second, I could see that she is somewhere from somewhere looking at me. I couldn't do any of my obligations. I managed to do one meeting that I had to. And then I felt a calling. I was with her all day, sitting next to her and holding her hand from time to time and acknowledging the life that we had together. And there was a moment where I felt like, okay, I'm going to sit with my team. They had a meeting. I said, I'm going to join the meeting. And very shortly after being with them, I just felt I had to leave and go back and sit with her. And somehow I felt it's the time to just say what there is to say. I was holding her hand while telepathically I was speaking with her, but I felt that was such a loud conversation. And I don't know from where I had the powers to say, but I just gave her back so many of the things that I copied from her aura, which were not mine, but hers. And I said to her, I don't want that. The frustration, the bitterness, the fearfulness, the low self-esteem, the so many things. I've done so much more work. I worked on myself. I worked on our relationship. I worked on femininity. I worked on mother and daughter relationship. I don't want to have that anymore. I'm giving that back to you. Thank you. Thank you for everything I've learned from it. And I'm giving it back to you. And then I said, what I'm willing to continue, what I'm willing to work on, what I'm willing to become aware of even more, what I'm willing to do, like what are the things that I'm really grateful for? The things that she really modeled in such a beautiful way. I truly do not know so much about my mother, as she was never sharing. I could only imagine the life that she had before I came into her life. I can only imagine. And I had to learn to imagine it. So I will truly be able to see her and accept her as a human. Because there is a certain point where being a mother can be a burden. And I wanted to give her freedom. I wanted her to be free to be who she is. That work, that moment, in that period in my life where I've learned to see her without request, without demands. They say that a child is coming to this world loving their parents in an unconditional love. But then somehow this love becomes so conditioned. How your mother's supposed to speak with you, to behave, to understand, to support, to empower, to really be perfect, which is impossible, truly impossible. My relationship with my mother were really not easy. I was physically, constantly, repeatedly, for years, harmed by her behavior. But I had to liberate myself and I had to liberate her. I've learned how to love her unconditionally. Such a process. But at that moment, I could feel, and I can still feel 1 month after, 1 month after, there's no burden from our relationship. There's an acknowledgement of what was there and what was not there. There's sadness of what was there and of what wasn't there. But there's no guilt, no shame, no blame. At that moment, while she was maybe 2% here, we reorganized the heritage so we can both be free. I kept sitting next to her and from time to time dealing with things that I had to deal with. I remember that I was touching her hand and the hand started to be a little bit cold. From time to time, I was calling the angels to be in this room, to be present, to support, to make sure that she ascend in the most beautiful and smooth and full and complete way with full respect. And from other moments, I was kept in some things that I had to take care of, my child, my husband. And then there was a moment where I felt like I had like a bowel moment and I was wondering, how am I going to leave the room? Because there was so much, my bags were there and I was sitting next to her bed. My bag was on one side and without stepping out of the chair, I just took my bags from the left side to the right side, so I will feel comfortable to leave the room for a moment. And I touched my phone, was on the table, wondering if to take it or not. And I decided that I'm just going to leave it and leave the room. And then I looked at her, and there was an exhale, and there were no inhale. And this is it. The empire of who she was ended, completed, like that. I stayed a few moments, maybe a minute, maybe two. I don't really know, in that space, looking at her, bursting into tears, with one of the most exquisite, I would say, experience of gratitude and forgiveness of the life she gave me, of the life she had, for the life she gave me, and for the life she had. I couldn't feel her presence out of her body. This is one of the reasons why I feel that she was actually decaying for so long. Probably for a few months, she was releasing pieces and pieces of her soul until the 1 or 2 last percentage left. At a certain point, I went out of the room and I looked into the nurse's eyes, and she understood and followed me to my mother's bed and looked at me, went to call the doctor. I stayed there looking at her. The doctor came and checked and confirmed death 1717. I thought to myself, well, God, I wanted something, a sign. 1717. Okay. There's so much bureaucracy to take care of, while a whole life, a symphony, ended. There's so much hassle while silent is in the room. There's so much noise, distractions, where the whole wholeness, the Almighty, is in the room. I wish I had the power to stay more next to her body, because those little signs of the letters on the car, God is with you and it's going to be great and just better and better, or the other beautiful sign of 1717, are honestly nothing comparing to an exhale and nothing continue after. We have an inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale, and we're living and dying and living and dying and living and dying all day long. It was quite phenomenal that 15 minutes before she passed, where we were reorganizing the heritage, she had 1% of her in her body, 2% of her, but her personality was still there. I could see everything. She was still there. But once she didn't inhale anymore, there was nothing there. Nothing. Nothing was there. She was not there. It was an object, a piece of meat. The Almighty was in her, and then it left. It is in you now. God is in you now. What else do I need? What else do we need? What else do you need to really surrender to this presence of God? It is so much alive within you. That breath He gave you, it gave you, they gave you, the way you want to call the divine, gave you that breath, gave you that body, gave you this life. Her personality, her issues, her self-esteem, her fearfulness, her control, her attention, her power, her beauty was there. And in a split of a second, it wasn't there. You can be so preoccupied with life, with others, with what to do and how to do, and what they will say, and if they would like it, and if they would not like it, and if it is okay or not okay, living someone else's life instead of living your life. And then 1 second, it will end. You can feel disconnected. And then 1 second, you would really be disconnected. There's so much more to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening and being part of this great conversation. You will find all the relevant links in the show notes, as well as a link to a meditation for you to feel more connected to your spirit and aligned with your soul contract. Please, if this episode touched you, leave a review, like, and subscribe. Feel comfortable to share it with your friends, family, and colleagues, because everyone has a calling.